give me some background on the franchises that you own and what you do?
Probably about, it was January of 2015, I bought a location for off-leash canine training in Columbia, South Carolina. I had trained as a client with off-leash, gosh, probably a number of years before that, and had always stayed in touch with the owner. And then when I moved away from the Northern Virginia area, I wound up, I became interested in opening a location for them, and wound up doing so. But it was probably 2 or 3 years after I moved to South Carolina. I think we moved here right at the end of 2012, and then I wound up opening that location January of 2015.
Okay.
So at the time, it was just kind of a side hustle, and you know, I've been a financial advisor for a number of years and done well doing that. But I had kind of just gotten tired of the work. It's kind of thankless work. You can make a lot of money for people, and you know, you can take a $250,000 portfolio and turn it into $500,000, and all they're interested in is when the half will turn into $1 million.
Right.
But so it's like a place you can sort of never arrive. You know, there's never an end point. It's always just what's the next thing.
Right.
And dog training is different. You can kind of change things in a really short period of time and have people be, you know, happy for the rest of their dog's life. So
that's awesome.
So I would say in 8 weeks, I got more thank yous and appreciation and so forth than I had in probably 8 years of being a financial advisor.
Wow. So, that's a big jump.
Yeah, so it was kind of there was a you know, kind of an interesting dynamic there. But my wife wasn't very happy with me for having opened this business without talking to her. It was originally just supposed to be sort of a pleasant surprise in that I was going to open this thing and run it successfully, and it was going to spin off enough extra money to kind of pay for our kids' college. We have 2 children, and so I was like, hey, you know, the goal is to go, hey, I started this thing and it's spinning off, you know, $3,000 a month, which we can just put into our kids' college. It didn't really work like that, though. The first probably 9 months of the business were just sort of a disaster.
Okay.
So it didn't go well, but I didn't necessarily expect everything to be you know, peaches and cream originally. So it took me a little while to kind of figure things out and get things going to where I wanted them to be. And since that time, I have a number of other locations. I have 4 others now, 4.5 actually.
That's awesome.
But, yeah. So it's going great guns now, and now my wife doesn't work anymore, and she's kind of figured out the wisdom of my little adventure.
Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Me too, because I like staying married.
I'm sure. So how did you become interested in franchising?
It wasn't franchising per se. It was, it later became, you know, at first it was just one location and one business, but the franchising part had its advantages because I was able to then, once I paid off my first location, I was able to then leverage that into buying additional locations. And that was a nice advantage, and something my wife also wasn't too happy about. But you know, additional locations gives you additional leverage,
right?
To do, you know, to have more cash flow and so forth. And so in that regard, it was great. And
right.
So now I'm a big proponent of that.
So what does your typical day, week, month look like?
I don't know that there's anything typical about it.
Okay.
I describe myself as basically being a glorified secretary because I spend most of my time answering the phone. And the phone can ring anywhere from 8 a.m. in the morning to, 8 or 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night. People call at all different hours and can sometimes send a request to chat via our websites at any hour of the day as well. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage because there's not really set hours. It can really be at any time.
Okay.
The advantage, though, is that I have the freedom to kind of do what I want during the day.
Right.
So, while I can get calls 7 days a week, it also means I don't have set hours. So if there's, a certain time in the day that I want to exercise or I want to do some other activity or whatever, it's not going to kill me to I have an answering service, so it's not going to kill me to be away from the phone for an hour. Yeah,
no, that is really nice. What's the one thing you wish you had known before you started this?
That's a good question. I would love to say I just wish I would have known all the little things that I do now. Like there's just a way of doing things. I've made the contacts. I know the companies that I want to associate myself with to help with, marketing or pay-per-click or, all those things. I have all of those connections made. And, that's just knowledge from being in the business and doing it.
Right.
You just get better at doing it. You know people to work with, you have a particular problem, you have someone you can call. So for example, if I want to change a document that clients have to sign in a particular state, I know that I have to have that document reviewed by an attorney in that state.
Okay.
So if you already know an attorney in that state, or you've already done this, you've already had document changes and you've hired a firm, or you have an attorney who's familiar with the state laws, you go, oh, I need to call, John. John's done this for me 3 times.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going on to Google and you're doing a search for attorneys that do that particular work. You know what I mean? You just kind of...
Yeah. You're kind of, searching in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that there's one thing, but it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. So what would you say after that about, talking about how you need to, all the different things you needed to know how to do? What do you think was the biggest challenge of ramping up a new franchise unit, especially since you've done, like you said, you have 4.5 now. What's the biggest challenge of ramping a new unit
up? Marketing is always a challenge, and cash flow is always a challenge because
okay.
you have to market, and if you're going to be doing different things online, you have to have a set a budget.
Right.
How much you want to spend for online marketing, and so it's always a balancing act between what you want to spend and managing your cash flow. So those are and I guess those things kind of go with each other. I majored in business management years and years ago.
I did as well.
In business management, there's the history's filled with case studies of companies that didn't manage their cash flow properly.
Right.
So, I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay. So you mentioned before that when you started this and you bought the first one, that it was your side hustle. And then you closed up your financial planning practice. How did you know that it was time to take it from a side hustle to your main source of income?
I had 1 month where I had a few months where we were doing good revenues and I was happy with things. And then we had 1 month where we just tripled.
Wow.
And I remember kind of going, like the phone just kept ringing and I was booking clients and then it just kept ringing. And at the end of the month, I was like, wow, look what just happened. Like, wow, this is a big number. And so I just remember thinking, hey, what if I had a second location, that was doing those kinds of numbers? And, and that's where franchising, I think, is has an advantage, because then you can start to see, hey, the thing that I'm doing can be repeated,
Right.
locations, et cetera, and it can go from being something where you're making a little extra per month, all of a sudden you're making significantly more. I won't even talk to you about the discussion that I had with my wife about, hey, the first one's paid, but I want to get another one. That was a completely separate discussion. That was beyond the "you're a barbarian, how could you" discussion.
Yeah, I'm sure that was difficult, but it clearly went well.
Well, I was successful in the end, we'll put it that way. The other part that really played, going back to your last question about how I knew it was the right thing to do to shut one business down and to focus more on another. Part was the cash flow, and the other part goes back to what I said at the beginning of when we started talking, and that is that it made my day happier.
Okay.
Because I was talking to people who would call and they'd be thrilled out of their mind that their dog was doing so well. So it was just, there was the financial aspect of it, but there was the other part about my day being so much more pleasant.
Right.
And just going back to what I was saying, we are several years into a very good bull market. People have been doing great with their portfolios for years and years, and somehow they're never happy.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, hey, I had one business where all the calls, people are happy after a couple of weeks. And then I had another business where, despite tremendous gains in the portfolios, there's always concern, worry, anxiousness, all these things. So I was like, wow, and I brewed on it for a few months. I really did. And then eventually it became very clear what I need to do. You wake up one day and the vision is crystal clear.
Yeah. You can tell that your quality of life with work changes.
Oh yeah, it was an easy decision, and I didn't even think twice about it. It was one of those things where I didn't go, wow, I got to run the nut. I was like, no, I'm doing this thing.
Awesome.
So anyway.
Well, again, thank you. I really, really appreciate your time. I know that you're really busy.